days turned into weeks. Obina didn't leave. He fetched water without being asked. He held Kamsi like a fragile egg and sang to him in a shaky voice that made the baby giggle. He wasn't perfect. He sometimes forgot how to hold the wrapper for swaddling. He once added too much salt to the ogbono soup. And he still walked with the silence of a man unsure of his place. But Kamsi smiled, and so did Ngozi. She still didn't call him husband. She called him Obina. And every night she watched his hands, not his words, because love, she had learned, is not told by the mouth, but by the fingers that stay when things break. One morning, Kamsi reached out and touched both their faces. And for the first time, they laughed as a family, not as broken people, but as people healing. Word of Gosi's story had spread far and wide. Other mothers began speaking more openly about fear, about anger, about feeling invisible. Men too began to listen. The elders called a village meeting, not for punishment, but for understanding. Mama Ejima stood in front of the crowd and said, "We have raised children, but who raised us to be parents?" There was silence. Then someone clapped, then more. Soon the square rang with the rhythm of truth. No judgment, no shame, just a community realizing that even strong arms sometimes drop the pot. And that night, for the first time in Omoze's history, they held a fire gathering where both men and women shared stories of parenting. Ngozi told hers again, and Obina stood beside her, silent but present. His presence this time was louder than words. As the dry season faded and the rain returned, the village organized a small celebration, not for harvest, not for wealth, but for healing. They called it the Festival of New Rain. Drums beat, children danced, old women ululated with joy. Ngozi wore a bright blue wrapper and carried Kamsi on her back, his tiny hands beating along to the drum's rhythm. Obina walked behind them, holding a carved wooden stool he had made for his son. They weren't the perfect family, but they were present. And in a land where presence is the beginning of love, that was enough. As the rain fell softly that evening, Gozi lifted her face to the sky and whispered, "Thank you for waking me," because the spirit world had tested her, and she had answered. Months passed. The rains came in full, the yam-bound field. Children ran barefoot through puddles, laughter flying like birds. Kamsi was now sitting up, clapping hands and chewing roasted corn with one tooth. His eyes sparkled like morning dew. His cry no longer brought fear, but joy. One evening, Ngozi sat under the big mango tree with Mama Ejima. The old woman plucked mangoes gently and hummed. "Thank you," Ngozi said. Mama Ejima smiled. "Not me. Thank your spirit. It refused to sleep forever." Ngozi nodded. "Sometimes I still feel guilt." Mama Ejima chuckled. "Guilt is like a wrapper. It keeps you warm at first, then chokes you if you wear it too long." They both laughed. The old woman touched her hand. "Tell your story always, not because it makes you strong, but because it keeps others from falling." And Ngozi promised that a story would never be kept quiet again. During the next festival of New Rain, something new was added. A carved drum, small, made from Iroko wood, with a snail shell tied to the side, was placed in the center of the village square. It was called Ne Ncheta, Mother's Reminder. Each year, mothers would beat it once before speaking their truth. Young girls would sit in front of it and learn not just how to carry babies, but how to carry themselves. Ngozi became the one who opened the festival every year. She would tell the story of the night she slept, the dream she dreamt, and the spirit that asked her a question. And each time she finished, someone in the crowd would be crying because it wasn't just a story anymore. It was theirs, a tale planted in the soil of the village like cassava, feeding hearts long after the mouths had gone silent. Years later, when Kamsi had grown into a boy who could run barefoot and climb trees, he asked his mother, Mama, why do people always touch that small drum before they speak? Ngozi smiled. Because that drum remembers something important. What does it remember? She bent down, placed her palm on his chest, and said that a child is not just life. A child is a spirit loaned to us, and careless hands can return them too soon. Kamsi looked at the drum, then at his mother. Then, in his small voice, he said, I will always stay close. She hugged him tight, and as the wind blew softly through the trees, Ngozi looked up at the sky, calm, whole, and no longer afraid of sleep, because she had learned, and the village had learned